Hi, in this video I'm going to introduce you to the 9 elements of music, which are pitch, melody, rhythm, harmony, form, timbre, texture, dynamics, and articulation. Every song that you can think of, any song you've heard, or any song from somewhere around the world will contain all of these 9 elements in some way or another. Sometimes these elements are featured more prominently in different types of music, but all 9 elements are present in every song. And so throughout the semester we're going to be learning about how these elements are intertwined and how they work together to create different types of music. So let's start with pitch. Pitch is also called the highness or lowness of sound. So higher sounds or lower sounds is just a description of pitch. So if you hear someone use that term, you'll know they're talking about whether or not a sound is high or low. For our example today, we're going to be using a famous folk song that I'm sure you've heard of, Mary Had a Little Lamb. And in this song, you will notice that some of the pitches are high and some pitches are lower. They are a lot closer together, but as we'll see throughout this example, they change, and that's what creates the next element of music, which is melody. Melody is the organization of single notes to form a musical sentence. The melody is also sometimes called the tune. Like if you are riding in your car or driving your car down the street and you're humming along to a song on the radio, you are most likely humming or singing along to the melody or the tune. And so as you can see in this example, I have a single line of notes, and this single line of notes would indicate one musical sentence. So it's just like if you think back to early elementary school when your teacher was helping you to start with the subject and the noun and going through to create this complete sentence. The same is true in music. There are certain guidelines to help you create these complete musical sentences that we call a melody. And if you look at our song, Mary Had a Little Lamb, I'm going to play the melody. The melody in this song is the top part of the music, and it sounds like this. And so those notes are organized in such a way that it sounds like a complete idea or complete thought. We call that the melody. The next element of music that comes into play is the rhythm. Rhythm is the organization of short and long sounds within time. So it's not just short and long sounds left onto their own devices, but it's organized. That means that there has to be a beginning and an end, and there has to be a predetermined length for each sound or space or silence. And that sound and silence has to be connected to the heartbeat or the pulse of a song. If you've ever found yourself tapping your toe or maybe tapping your leg as you listen to music or at a concert, you are most likely unconsciously tapping the heartbeat or the pulse of the song. And in this example, we're going to see that rhythms can be shorter or longer. The first example that you see on your screen here is a rhythm pattern that sounds like this. So you could hear kind of the general sense of longer and shorter sounds. How that plays into our song, Mary Had a Little Lamb, is based on the type of notes that you see. So I'm going to circle the different lengths of sound. This first note that I circled gets 1 heartbeat of sound. This note gets 2, so it's longer. This little group is called a syncopated rhythm, and this last sound gets 4 beats of sound. And so these rhythms are combined to create the rhythm pattern for the song, which if I were to say it and clap it for Mary Had a Little Lamb would sound like this. Ta 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 ta. And so you can hear that the sounds were longer and shorter. That's essentially what rhythm would be. Another element of music is when you combine the melody with additional notes, and that creates harmony. So harmony, the description for that, is 2 or more notes that are played or sung at the same time. When we look at our song Mary Had a Little Lamb, we know the melody is this top line. The bottom section is a harmony. Now this is not true for every song, but it is true for this song. So the harmony is any time that we have two or more notes that are played or sung at the same time. So let's listen to this harmony pattern to see how it is different from our melody. That's our harmony pattern. So you could hear we had longer sounds and we had groups of notes played at the same time. The next element of music that comes into play is form. Form is the organization and structure of a song. Let's see how this plays out with Mary Had a Little Lamb. In this song, there are two sections. Although they sound very similar, there are some differences. So I'm going to identify those two sections. The first section would be the first sentence. And I think of this sentence as a sentence that ends with a question mark. The second part of the song is a new section, and although it sounds similarly, it ends, I would say if it was a sentence, it would end with either an exclamation point or a period. So let's listen to those two to see how they are different. This is section number 1. Okay, so kind of a question, and then here's the second section. It's kind of like the answer. So sometimes you'll hear people refer to really simple forms of music as a question and an answer. Sometimes you'll also hear people identify it using letters. So the first section would be identified with the letter A. The next section, which is something new, would be identified with the letter B. The basic idea here is that every song is organized into sections, and those sections are put together in a certain way to create a unique sound. The next element of music that we encounter is timbre, which is kind of a unique word. Timbre is the unique sound of every voice and instrument. It's also called the tone color. And so as you can see on the screen, I included a list of fun descriptive words for sounds that you might hear. And timbre is just the description of that unique element of sound that is different for every voice, every instrument. And so as we listen to some examples, you should hear some differences. That was an organ sound. Now listen to the same song with a different instrument. And so just in two different sounds, it changes kind of the emotion or the feeling of the song. Let's listen to one more example. That was the xylophone. And so each of those instruments has its own unique quality of sound or timbre, and composers have to pick different timbres to create a certain sense of mood or a certain type of feeling or emotion in their song. And we'll learn more about that as the semester goes along. The next element is texture. Texture is directly related to timbre. It's the combination of timbres sounding together to create sound layers. So the way that I like to think about it is like musical lasagna. A lot of songs have multiple types of instruments or voices that are being put together to create this song, and so it's creating lasagna, where you start with the top layer, which instead of noodles and sauce and cheese might be something like the voice. Then maybe you'd have a guitar, and then you might add a piano or a keyboard, and then you might have a drum set. And when you combine those different groups of instruments together to create sound layers, that's another part of a song that makes it special and makes it unique. So an example might be something like this if you combine string instruments. And so it creates a bigger, richer, and more full sound. The next element that we're going to look at is called dynamics. Dynamics is the loudness or softness of sound, and we have different options within music. We can play music very quietly, which we would call pianissimo. These are all Italian terms. Or we could play music very loudly, which we would call fortissimo. If I were to play the first part of Mary Had a Little Lamb with different dynamics, it would change the sound. For example, versus playing it loudly. And so dynamics is another element of music that composers use to add feeling and emotion to songs. The final element that we're going to look at today is articulation. Articulation is simply the way notes begin or end. So some ways to think about it would be that notes could be short, they could be long, they could be detached from each other, or they could be blended together. So let's listen to some differences using our song Mary Had a Little Lamb to hear what that might sound like. That's an articulation where the notes are detached using very short, crisp sounds. We might say that's a staccato articulation. If I blend the sounds together, it creates a different sound or a different feeling. That would be blended together or slurred together, where the notes go kind of meld from one to the other. Articulation also is used by composers to create different types of feeling or moods, and also to help you to think of songs using emotions like feeling happier or excited or maybe angry or sad, and those articulation styles can change the way a song sounds dramatically depending on what the composer uses. So again, to recap, we have 9 elements. Those elements all work together to form a song, and those elements play out in different ways depending on the type of music that you are playing or listening to.